to welcome everyone to the Legally Blissed Conversations podcast. And I would love to welcome my friend, Davina Frederick today. Davina is a Florida licensed attorney who started and operated 2 law firms before she decided to become a law firm growth strategist and business coach for other women law firm owners in 2013. In the past 8 years, she's helped hundreds of women law firm owners scale their law firm businesses to and through $1 million with total ease. I like that second part. Davina is also the author of 2 books on scaling your law firm business, and she's the founder of the popular Wealthy Woman Lawyer podcast. So make sure you go check that out. So welcome again, Davina. I'm so happy you're here. So how are things going today?
Thank you. Things are going well today. I have to say, in Florida, it's beautiful, it's sunny, warm day. We're already we're skipping spring, going right to summer, it looks like. But it's wonderful. Wonderful. I'm happy to be here. It's interesting to sit through an introduction like that and you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I did do that.
That's me. That's me.
Awkward.
I did all the things. Yeah. No, but you do have quite the resume. So let me ask you, I'm curious, why did you decide to go to law school? What ultimately prompted you to go to law school? I'm feeling very much an entrepreneurial spirit from you. So I'm curious, like, where did the light bulb go off?
Come in?
I'm going to go to law school.
So I did not, I had a whole other career before I went to law school. I did not go to law school until I was in my late 30s. And by the time I graduated law school, I was 40. So it definitely very much was a second career for me. I had my undergrad degree was in journalism, and I really had dreams of being, a traveling foreign correspondent, traveling around the world and, writing for newspapers and war-torn countries and all that. But which is kind of hilarious for anybody who knows me, because I get motion sick if I walk too fast. So the idea of me being on planes, trains, and automobiles is ridiculous. But I wound up instead staying in Orlando. I married my first husband, and there weren't a lot of journalism games in town. There was only one newspaper in town, and I really wanted to work for a newspaper. And that was the Orlando Sentinel. And so the odds of me as a fresh grad getting a job there were kind of slim to none. So I started looking for other types of writing jobs. And I got a job as a technical writer for an engineering firm. And what that meant to them was really marketing, because they had to write a lot of technical reports to respond to requests for proposals. And so they needed somebody to translate engineer speak into sales speak, marketing speak for the people receiving their proposals. So that launched me into a career in marketing. And I was in marketing for about 15 years. I worked for the largest law firm in Central Florida. I worked for an ad agency. And my favorite job was really at the ad agency, because I went from being a support person in a company to the one who was the money generator, because I was a copywriter, and in an ad agency, your graphic designers and your copywriters are the ones who are, the billable people, the ones who are making the money. And I really found my people, and I absolutely loved it. But the things changed at that company. It was started by a couple of really young guys, and I was a little bit older, and I had other needs and wants, benefits and things like that I wanted to make more money, all those things that we want at that age. And so I wound up, by then I had already divorced my first husband a few years before, and I met the person who eventually became my current husband, and hopefully last husband.
That's your future ex-husband, right?
Right. We just celebrated our 19th anniversary. Yeah, we was touch and go there that last week before the 19th. We didn't know if we were going to make it there, but we did.
Yeah.
Because of that, I had an opportunity to go to law school, because several things just sort of fell into place. One, Orlando finally had a law school. It had taken a few years for it to get accredited. By the time I went, it was accredited and fairly newly accredited. And he also was doing quite well in his career. And so it was the first time in my life, I've been working since I was 16. And it was the first time in my life that somebody said to me, you don't have to work. You just like do whatever you want. Go figure out what it is you want to do if you want to do something different. And the marketing career had sort of evolved. It wasn't anything I sought to do. So I thought, well, I can be intentional about this next phase of my life, this new career. What do I want to do? And I actually had a whole matrix, a chart. I looked at multiple careers. I looked at, do I want to be a teacher? Do I want to be, a psychologist? Do I want to be an attorney? And I had a cousin I'm very close to who loved being, he had become a lawyer in his career later in life, and he loved it and still loves it. And so he said, you really need to go to law school. You're going to love it, and blah, 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 blah. So I checked into law school and I said, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And I had it was something that had always sort of been, he had always been an influence on me, even when I was young and he was going to law school. So it had already planted that seed, and it just sort of, everything aligned. And I went to law school, and I went to law school with the intention of starting my own law practice right out of law school. So it was very intentional. It wasn't because I couldn't find a job or anything like that. I had a lot of contacts, having been in marketing for so long. But my husband was an entrepreneur, and I loved his lifestyle as an entrepreneur, and I really caught the bug. And so that was my intention from the get-go. And so that's what I did. When I graduated law school, I started my own law firm.
So I love that you went to law school intentionally. And there was also another word that you said in there I thought was really interesting, was I had the opportunity to go to law school. And I don't always hear that in relation.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, I didn't really know what else to do. Or, of course, some people are like, yeah, I wanted to go to law school since I was 8 years old. So it was kind of a path already paved for them in some ways. But that really just resonated that you said that, like, I had the opportunity. So you approached it very intentionally. I think you said that. And then when
I say I had the opportunity, I grew up, I was the first person in my family to graduate from college, in my immediate family. So my parents worked very hard, and they've done very well for themselves, but their parents before them all of them didn't graduate high school, and my parents graduated high school, and I just grew up in a working class family. And for us, I paid my way through college. And I paid for my own wedding. I paid my way through college. So a lot of times people have, those advantages, and I didn't have that advantage. Fortunately, I had parents who really taught me the love of learning and the value of education. And when I was young, they would say, going to school is your job, just like going to work is our job. That's that's what you're supposed to do, right? And so it was never a privilege that was available to me just because of how I grew up and when I grew up. And I really credit them, because they made they're such avid readers. And then my sisters and I, as a result of that, have always been really avid readers. And so we've always had this love of learning. And I think that's what continues to be a thread throughout my whole life. And I've always, I'm in the third iteration of my career, probably the fourth, more than that. But it's really that curiosity and that love of learning. But it really was an opportunity. And I am appreciative of my husband for being able to provide that opportunity for me, for somebody to say, because when I was in undergrad, I worked and put myself through school. And so it was a real challenge. It took me a little bit longer than it took some other people, but I kept doing it until I got it, right? And so yeah, I really do view it that way. I don't believe that I think it's important to recognize our opportunities when they come to us. And I do not believe that we get anywhere without the village of people around us to provide things for us, right? Whether it is just, living here in this country where we have infrastructure and we have, schools and roads and all of these things. Like, I think, nobody gets where we're going alone, that it does take community. other people involved in your life.
Yeah, and rely on those people, right? Like be ready to lean into them when they're offering help. Like I think that sometimes we try really hard to be stoic or independent. Like I'm this independent woman and I can do all the things myself. But asking for help or leaning into that if someone offers it,
Yeah, well,
So
I would say though, I really struggled with when I married my husband. This is really
yeah.
getting into like a personal relationship thing, but I really struggled when I married him because he was doing very well and he was, pretty wealthy. And I had, well, like I said, I'd worked since I was 16, 13 before that, if you count things like babysitting and whatnot, but I'd had an actual job since I was 16. So here I was in my late 30s, and I had never not worked and supported myself.
Mm.
So for me, it was a real struggle for a while before I decided to go to law school. I was kind of working part-time. I was trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And I would feel guilty because I had always, and so I have a very firm belief that one should be responsible for oneself. So I do believe that, and I know for traditional roles for men and women, oftentimes in the past in traditional roles, women sort of always think it's a little bit of an option to work or not, especially if they have kids. And I have a kind of a different view on that because I think we don't look at men the same way. Men don't approach life with well, I have an option of working once I get married, but oftentimes women do look at it that way. And I know that's changing some. A lot of my clients now, younger women, are the breadwinners in the family, and their husbands are staying home. But the way I grew up was a very traditional kind of thing. So I struggled with that. Um, but I went to law school and then started my practice and went from there.
So let's talk about starting your own practice straight out of law school. So you had worked in a law firm, but it was sort of in the capacity as like you were in their marketing department, I suppose. So
I was the marketing manager. Yeah, I was the marketing manager.
Yeah, okay. So you were not in the department, you were managing their
I worked in the department.
Yeah, you were in the department. So what skills did you learn from that? You know, were there any skills from that experience that helped you with starting your own practice, or did you really feel like you were kind of starting from scratch?
No, it's very interesting because when I say I was in the department, they actually hired 3 people when I left because it took that many to replace me. And that was, and it
Or
was
the
not,
department?
yeah, right. So it truly was something where, and that's typical, I think, of a lot of law firms as they're growing. You're relying on one person, and they do, and they do, and they do, and when they're gone, you're like, oh crap, this person, we really need to divide this out into multiple jobs, right? So it was that experience was very influential, not so much in me wanting to be a lawyer, but in what I learned about the inner workings of a law firm, because this law firm was what most people would say is sort of a mid-sized law firm, but it's a large law firm, the largest law firm, single office law firm in Central Florida, in the Orlando area. But it's not a national law firm with offices all over the country or anything like that. But it's where a lot of law firms sort of aspire to get to that sort of wealth. And I learned so much about the infrastructure of a law firm and how to run a law firm because I was one of a team of 5 admins. I'm not talking about paralegals and legal assistants and things like that. I'm talking about managers, administrators. The way it was set up, we had a firm administrator, and under the firm administrator, there was the accounting administrator, the HR administrator, marketing administrator, and then the technology administrator. And so we all sort of manage these different operations areas. So being in that team really taught me a lot about the operations and management of a law firm business. Mm-hmm. So it was really influential in that way in what I do currently.
Interesting.
It also, it helped me some when I started my firm, but when I started my firm, it was a completely different animal because I was a solo.
Mhm.
And a solo is very different from a firm with, 50 partners
Yeah.
and 100 lawyers, right? So it helps me now, but when I started out, not so much.
Not so much. So what area did you practice when you first came out of law school?
Well, I did door law. Is what so whatever crossed the door through the door came through
Whatever
the
came
door. That's what
through.
I did. And the reason I did that, I know a lot of people say, oh, you want to do door law. I do think a lot of solos start out doing door law. And the reason I did is because I didn't know what I wanted to do. When you go through law school, you really don't know what the different practice areas are going to be like.
They're
And
so,
so
yeah.
how do you know unless you so most people sort of fall into a practice area based on what their first job is.
Mhm.
Well, so for me, I didn't know what I had kind of an idea of things that I would like to, and things that I probably wouldn't like to do. And I know you're sort of limited as a solo. You're not going to get big corporate clients, right, in that capacity. So I was really kind of doing family law, estate planning, and I did some business law, so contracts, formation, contracts, a lot of contract work. But then within a month of starting my practice, so this was kind of my idea, this was sort of what I was going to work in. Within about a month, it was the end of 2007. Now, if you guys remember, think back to November, December 2007, what was coming up? What was coming up was a whole wave of foreclosures,
Yeah.
2008 recession. And in Florida, where I practice, we were, along with California, we were like the leading foreclosure states. And so what happened is I had a colleague who was a friend of mine, and we were walking one day after work, and she said, I was at the courthouse today, and the chief judge was really mad. He came storming out. She was down at the Orange County Courthouse. I'm in Seminole County, so I practiced in 3 counties at the time. And Orange County is the main one. And so she said, he comes storming out. He's really upset because all of these attorneys from down south are calling in and doing these foreclosure hearings. They're representing the lenders.
Mhm.
And so today he came storming out and he said, I'm going to go write an executive order requiring local counsel for these lenders out of Miami, these Miami law firms. And so I called the JA the next day and I said, hey, who are some of these firms that are coming up here? And I got a list from a JA who was in Orange County of about 6 or 7 firms that were sort of leading the charge on representing bankers in foreclosure actions. And I cold called them. And I asked to speak to the person in charge of their foreclosure department. And I said, I just found this out and it's going to be coming in the other counties here. I'd like to be your local counsel. And that really became my bread and butter money to grow my firm. So when I tell people that about opportunity meeting preparation equals success, it's that idea that there was an opportunity, but had I not acted on the opportunity, it would not have happened. That opportunity led me to bring in a partner, hire staff, attorneys, grow the practice, move to a different location, all of that. That really was the thing that kicked off my practice. And I also learned how to litigate, how to have a motion practice and litigate and all of that. And I did all of that. I didn't love it, but I did all of that so that it would allow me the time to learn how to become a good divorce lawyer, a good estate planning lawyer, a good business lawyer, all of those things. I was able to move at a slower pace because I didn't worry about having to pay the bills because we were making money doing this. And that lasted for quite a while. I actually wound up leaving the firm, and my partner continued to do that for many years. She still does local counsel stuff to this day. And it was it was a very fruitful opportunity for us. And one of the things that I always tell other lawyers is we all have those opportunities that are unique to us, those sort of advantages
Mm-hmm.
that are unique to us. And it's a time and place specific thing. We're in the right place at the right time with the right people, or we know somebody, or we're connected to somebody that will provide an opportunity that will only work in this time, place, and circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it over and over and over again when I go through a SWOT analysis with my clients. I ask them about their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I always go over with them, what are the unique advantages that are, the advantages that are unique to you that other people don't have? Are you a member of this organization or that? Do you know these people? You've been in business for 2 decades. I mean, those are advantages.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of advantages and opportunities that we have that we don't see. We take them for granted.
Right.
And so we don't take action on them, right? And so that, for me, that really was the thing that catapulted my law firm and career.
I think that's so enterprising as well. Like you definitely had your like radar on, right? Like you were open to opportunities. You were listening to what people were talking about. You were paying attention to what was going on, right? Like we were at that point, like a few months away from the recession, right? Like you were putting yourself out there. So like, in addition to, this, preparation equaling success, having to have that opportunity element, the opportunity element really means putting yourself out there, right? Like we can get really comfortable sitting behind Zoom, especially like over the last couple of years. It can, it can feel pretty good to have the yoga pants on and not put our face on and all of this stuff. But, really putting yourself out there in situations to help that, increase those odds of those opportunities.
Well, funny that you say that too, because I have this little philosophy about 15 minutes of courage. I didn't invent this. I don't know where I heard it from, but 15 minutes of courage was what I'm an introverted person. And even though I've been like in marketing and have this career, I've been to all the rubber chicken dinners and, all of that throughout my career. But so my marketing background came in handy in that regard. But picking up the phone and cold calling, it's something you don't imagine an attorney doing. But I was calling other attorneys and I was telling them about something very specific that they would find helpful. And that took me to like, okay, I'm just gonna do this for 15 minutes, or I'm just gonna do this for half an hour or just an hour, and then I can go do something else. Because cold calling can be scary.
So scary.
Whether even if you're cold calling other colleagues, especially being a new attorney.
Yeah.
But I kind of deploy that 15 minutes of courage strategy. Often if it just, let me just take 15 minutes and do this thing that is emotionally challenging for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to release the outcome. I'm just going to release my responsibility for the outcome. I cannot control the outcome, but I can control the action that I take, because really all the intentions and the ideas in the world are nothing unless you apply some action behind them. You have to take action. And I will credit my partner too, because she took that even further. When we became partners, she went to the courthouse and she looked up all the recent cases in our local courthouse and found more law firms, and she went after those law firms. So, I chose a partner who also was very willing to do the work,
Mm-hmm.
really willing to do the work and face the fear. We didn't know. We were both green and we didn't know, but we had to face, we just faced the fear of the challenge and said, let's go do this. And there were areas where we also chickened out. So like, I'm not saying like, we're not special or unique to some special superpowers. There were other things that were like, I don't know, that's a little too scary for me. I don't want to go down that path yet. Like, I don't know that I'm qualified or capable enough. So we had our own, self-doubts, but
sure.
And we had each other in the beginning. The first year I was on my own, and then I teamed up with her. So it was she'd worked one other job beforehand. So it was we had each other and we were friends who stayed in touch from law school and all of that. So I do think your community is very important.
Yeah.
Your connections in your community are very important.
And see, now you have that experience that you can kind of bond with her over. Like, do you remember we kicked ass back in 2007 and 2008? Like we did this.
Well, what's funny is, yeah, 2009, all that. So, well, what's funny is that I did wind up splitting from her, but it was for personal reasons, and it wasn't her. And we are still friends to this day. We're going into our 15th year of practice. We're still friends. We still get together. And both of us are like, yeah, I don't ever want to partner again, though. It's funny. And I don't think it has anything to do with either of us not liking each other. It's just both of us are very we're both mavericks who like to do things the way we like to do them without consulting other people. So
right. Which helps to have your own law firm, right? Like you don't have to necessarily go talk to, 5 layers of partners above you if you want to implement a new policy. You just say, hey, Davina, I want to do this thing. Davina, yeah, sure, let's do it. So you just have this little conversation with yourself and you just, boom, you implement this policy. And that can even be challenged when you're partnering with someone.
Yeah,
So,
it can be. I've had partners. Generally, my coaching clients are solos. I do have a couple of people right now who are partners, but they're also sisters. But generally speaking, I don't work with partners for that reason, because what I will find is one partner is wanting to do this. They're wanting to grow and they have ideas about it, and their other partner doesn't, and so they're wanting to talk to me to try to help persuade them. I don't do that. So I see that a lot with partners. There's some partners that partnerships work out great. And then other times, one partner tends to be more dominant than the other. And you see a partner who doesn't always bloom for that. So I do think people need to be very careful about getting into partnerships. And one of the things that I often see women do is, out of fear, they gravitate toward a partner because they're afraid of doing it on their own. And they say, I have somebody. It's very much like how women always like to go together to work out, or go together to go, like women are sort of, a lot of women are very group oriented. And so they think, oh, I'm going to get a partner and that's going to make it easier, right? Because I have somebody to share the decision making with and the emotional burden with and all that. And I say, if that's your reason for doing it, don't do it. Go work on yourself, because I think that's a mistake.
Oh, that's really good advice.
Put it out there.
No, that's really, really good advice. So I'm curious about something, you mentioned a minute ago, the 15 minutes of courage. I am curious where you've applied this in other areas of your business.
Oh my gosh. I do it all the time in small ways and big ways. It might be sending an email to somebody. It might be reaching out to somebody, and one of the things is having uncomfortable conversations. I think as we start growing and we're dealing with clients, we're dealing with hiring people, oftentimes we have to have uncomfortable conversations. And many times I see people avoid uncomfortable conversations. One year I actually had, like every year, some people have like a word for the year.
Oh yeah.
Expansion or courage. One year my word was courage. And I decided that year I would not shy away from uncomfortable conversations, that I would have them head on. And it's very challenging. And I think one of the dangers of that is, I think when you say that, you're kind of asking the universe to send you uncomfortable conversations so you can test that out.
You got to try it out, right?
I want, but over the years, that's how you develop skills. And I think one of the things that I see a lot of people do now is they ghost. They avoid. They say, I want this thing, or I want to do that. And then they have second thoughts. And rather than say, I don't want this, they ghost.
Yes.
And it happens in social situations. It happens in work situations. I was just seeing an article today where somebody, said, oh, this is a picture from my birthday party a year ago. Nobody came. I had 15 people invited and, nobody came. And I've had that experience where I've thrown a work event, and I had a lot of people say they were going to come, and it rained that night, and people just didn't come. And so I had paid for all this food. I had paid for music. I had paid for all the decorations and everything. It was a networking event for women lawyers. And a lot of them, oh yeah, I'm going to be there. And then they didn't show up. So I had a few, and so there's a couple things out of that. One is what my philosophy of love the one you're with. So pay attention to the people who do show up, right? And the other thing is that note to self, I won't be doing a free event where I'm paying for the booze and the food and everything again. I'll be charging people because it cost me a lot of money. And I see this happening where people go, and what they think is that they won't notice. Other people will be there, they won't notice, whatever. Instead of just saying, I don't want to do that. I can't come, or whatever. I'd rather go home and be with my family, or, but when I see that in work situations too, with people, it's happening right now. I'm reading all kinds of articles with this great recession where people who are representing employees are out there talking about how, as these companies are ghosting people. They apply for a job and then you're not responding back to them, and shame on you. And it's funny because on the other side of it, I hear the women law firm owners saying, I'm trying to hire people. And I've had 2 clients recently say, I hired someone, and on the day they were supposed to start, they didn't show up. They called and said, I'm not going to do it. So it is so right, they just don't show up. But I had one who had somebody who left and never came back. And she actually said somebody did a wellness check on her because she said, we're trying to call her, not responding, we're worried. And then they go find her. And she's like, yeah, I just didn't want to come back. So I think the fear around having conversation with people and just being honest and just saying, this isn't for me, or I didn't like it, or, it's just it's not the right fit, it's not going to work, or whatever. Then you put it behind you and you don't have to carry the guilt or the shame or, the bad reputation that you're creating for yourself, all of those things that come out of that. And I do think our society, the way it's set up right now, has caused a lot of people to feel like they can hide behind their keyboard and their computer and people won't notice, but people do notice. People absolutely do notice. So that is a place where 15 minutes of courage, I speak my truth. And I learned that because my husband and I went through a difficult time in our marriage. And a lot of it was because I was wanting him to be happy and I was wanting to be careful about what I said to indicate. And then when I started speaking my truth, we had a much better relationship, but it was painful and it was difficult and all of that. But now by creating that and also creating that space for him to do it, then we were able to, have hard conversations and still be standing on the other side, whether you're together or you're not together or whatever's going on, you're still standing on the other side and you're like, see, it's so not that difficult to use your words.
Standing on the other side stronger. Yeah. Staying on the other side stronger than you were before, right? And like you said, definitely. You're either be together or not. And it's the same thing like with any hard conversation. And I do think that people shy away from having those hard conversations. But we have to
there are people listening to this right now who have employees that really suck and they're scared to death to have a conversation with them because they're afraid they're going to quit and then they're not going to find anybody else to replace them. And really what they're doing is they're holding up that person from seeking a better fit and a better opportunity. And they're holding up the opportunity for somebody else who's a better fit for them. In those 2 instances that I told you about where people called the day up, both of the employers found better fit employees with a very short period of time. So don't be afraid of the consequences. Just screw up 15 minutes of courage just to say what you need to say, right?
You can get through 15 minutes, right? Like you can do this.
Yeah.
I love that.
I had a client at one point who, a couple of years ago, who was dissatisfied with me. And she had the courage to say something about it. And I reacted completely in a different way than she had imagined I would act. And we went on to have a wonderful working relationship after that, because she was able to say, this bothers me. And I was able to look at it and go, oh yeah, I could see why it would.
Right.
It's not like it's not about you. It wasn't meant to be, but I could see why it would feel that way, and I apologize for that. Right. So that is the thing. I think we give up on relationships with people because we're just too chicken.
You're saying, people giving up on relationships, and you have to like conjure up this 15 minutes of courage. But I can tell from you, like you are brave. Like I know you are brave. So I want to hear about sort of your transition from having a law firm and then ultimately starting Wealthy Woman Lawyer. I think that I would love to hear like how that worked, because I know like bravery came into play here. You had to have been brave.
Well, I think what it was is, so I split up with my law firm partner. I did that because of some things that were going on in my personal life, with my marriage, with my husband, and with our financial situation, and some decisions that, some things that were affecting his business. And all of that was a really difficult time in my life. And I walked away from the law firm because I kind of went into a depression during that period of time. And I just didn't feel like I could continue working as much as I was working in the way that I was working. It wasn't working for me, given all that I was dealing with at home. And I had to make a decision about what that was going to look like for me. So that was a really difficult period, and it lasted for a number of years. And during that time, I really, truthfully, I got pissed off. I had always been a bit of a people pleaser. I'm a middle child, so I'm a diplomat. I want everybody to get along, all of that kind of thing. And because of that, I often would not speak truth about my own needs and my own want, for fear of hurting other people's feelings. I would much rather have my feelings hurt than hurt other people's feelings. That's kind of family I grew up into. And so it took really, honestly, years of therapy, and I started hiring coaches. But I'll tell you what led me to hire my first coach. I started my second. Well, first I took some time off from the law altogether, and my husband and I had a high performance fitness training studio, and we worked in that, and had clients in there. We would do private coaching and group coaching and things like that in a fitness facility. But that's his thing. It wasn't my thing. I was kind of supporting his thing. Like I did it and became certified and all of those things, but it really wasn't my thing. And I was trying to figure out what my thing was. And so I kind of half-heartedly started a law firm again in 2011. When I did, it was all virtual. And back then in 2011, virtual wasn't a thing. People were like, what do you mean virtual? And I had a man say to me, no, your clients aren't going to like that. And the reason he said that is because he had some really sweet, expensive office space he wanted me to rent. Yeah. And so I just said, well, I'm going to try it. And as it turned out, my clients loved it. But virtual back then was a telephone and email. It was not all the tools that we have now, right? And nobody was doing it. But I just didn't want to go back to working in an office. I had gained 30 pounds. I was working all the time. I didn't want to go back to that. So I started out just kind of part-time, transactional, and I was doing in-person networking still. And I got invited by a friend of mine who is an attorney, who'd been an adoption attorney for years. And she was a mentor of mine when I had my first practice. And she said, I'm going to this big coaching event. I'd love you to come with me. And I did.
Opportunity.
Opportunity, but I wasn't thrilled about it. You understand? Like, I didn't want to leave the house. I was coming out of this sort of depression.
Yeah.
I was working from home. I didn't want to leave the house. But she said, and it's all the way down on I Drive, which is the other side of town from where I live. It's like, an hour to get there, and you're in the tourist area, all that. But I got dressed up and I went, and I was blown away by it. I was blown away. It was a lot of this loud music, dance music, and all this excitement, and all these women were there. They were all talking about business and growing their businesses. And I'd always loved business law, and that was, that was an area that I was passionate about. So when I reopened my virtual practice, I was doing estate planning, I was doing business law, I wasn't doing divorce stuff anymore. And I went with her, and I was just blown away by it. Well, I wound up signing up for a coaching program. And at the time,
Oops.
I did not have any idea how I was going to pay for this, because I wasn't making very much money in my practice so far. And I wound up signing up for it anyway. I sort of, I was definitely right for a sales pitch. And my friend, seeing me do that, she goes, well, I'm going to do it too. And then we did. That coaching program did not turn out to be what I thought it was going to be. There was a lot of information there, but really the truth of the matter is I didn't know what I wanted to do. So there was limitations on what I could take away from what they were teaching, because I didn't really know. I wasn't really thrilled with what was going on. I just knew I didn't like being in adversarial situations, in court, all that kind of stuff, right? So but I kept sort of pursuing that and I never really, I knew about coaching, but not really to that degree. And then that experience led me to hire my second coach. And my second coach was a one-on-one coach. So I paid more money than ever to that coach. And she is the one who really helped me start changing my mindset. And it was a monumental task on her part to take me on, because I had very fixed mindset. I had very fixed beliefs, black and white. And, but I also was open to hear what other people had to say. Right.
You have to be open-minded, right?
She helped me realize that I was trying to do everything myself, that I was holding on so tightly to try to do something that I couldn't open my hands to receive anything, like everything was based on my own willpower, instead of this idea of the universe helps us along, if we open our eyes to it. And so I was a tough nut for her to crack, but that probably was the most profound relationship in helping me change my mind, between that and my therapist I had had for a number of years. I finally got a really great therapist who would help me, because I just grew up with with parents who were very sheltered, and their worldview was this,
Right.
And so I was trying to learn and grow, and it didn't fit who I was anymore and who I wanted to be. That was really what it is. It's nothing wrong with them and what they did. It just didn't fit the current times and life for me as a woman in that period of time. You know what I mean? So I had to learn new ways to be and to think. And I think that's where a lot of it came from, is that sort of opening up and realizing that I don't have to have all the answers myself,
So you've had two coaches, right? So let me ask you.
I got a third.
Oh, yeah.
I got a third. So the third
I've got
one.
multiple coaches. So for each area of the life.
It's very interesting, because I think this is the mistake that people often make, is we think that we're going to do one thing and that's going to change us forever, and life is going to be set after that. And it's really a journey, right? So everything that you're doing is leading you to the next. So it's elevating your vibration, it's opening your mind, it's elevating the way you think, and that leads you then to somebody else. So when they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? So my next teacher was a man who was very business oriented. He had a strong business background, and he was very methodical, strategic, all that. And I was really looking for that, because the coach I had before that, I absolutely loved her, but she was very woo-woo.
Yeah.
And she didn't have a lot of sort of the business skills. And I really wanted to learn how to leverage, right? So instead of me trading time for dollars, I really wanted to learn how to leverage. And that business coach was my business coach, has been for 3 years. He's no longer my business coach in a formal capacity, but he's still somebody who is a business advisor to me and somebody I trust and who's a mentor. And so each of them bring different things to you, and you have to be ready, right? You can't just, I would not have been the ideal client for him when I first started out, because he was just in a different place than so I think it's one of those things where when we talk about right fit and making sure somebody's a right fit for you and where you are, not everybody's going to be a right fit client for me. Not everybody's going to be a right fit client for you. And that's okay, right? But when I first started my law practice, I would take whoever came through the door. Well, very quickly that doesn't work, you find out, like, I can't help this person, or this person is like, they need a therapist, not a lawyer, right? Or a psychiatrist, not a lawyer, right? But you don't know that. And part of learning that is taking those bad clients and taking that, and then you learn it. Same thing with the coaching business. When I started coaching, I helped small business owners. I wound up niching down to women law firm owners because that's who was hiring me the most. And so I really wanted to just speak to them. But I started out helping other professional services businesses because I had a lot of experience in that. And those, some of those were the right clients for me then, but they wouldn't be the right clients for me now. And some of them weren't right clients for me then, but I couldn't know that unless I had the contrasting experience of going through the journey with them and having to have the hard conversations and deal with people not paying or people wanting to quit or, things because, and so as you grow, you begin to, you attract people who are more suited to where you are at that particular time. That's where I was at that time. This is where I am this time, right? It's different, right?
I think we get better too at figuring out who we vibe with, right? And who we don't.
Right.
And we're better at almost having like a sixth sense on that. It could be a female thing. I'm not really sure, right? But that's something I talk to other attorneys about, what the best way to prevent malpractice is on the first phone call, right? Or at the door, like they used to say, on the first Zoom call, right? You should get a very good feel of that person. And like whatever red flags you have, like always keep that in mind. Like always listen to your gut and don't be afraid to say no or turn away a client. A prospective client. So many young lawyers are they're like, no, I can't, I'm not in that position yet.
The thing about that is if you're not in that position yet, that's okay. But because you learn something from every engagement that you have. But I think the key is that experience allows you to learn to ask better questions. Right. So because then something comes up and you're like, okay, next time I write a contract, I want to make sure that's in the contract. Right. The next time and so you learn to ask better questions. You learn to ask them, do you have a job? Like, are you going to pay the bill? Right. You learn to ask them things that indicate, whether they're a good fit for you or not. And obviously there's a lot more to it than just the money piece there, because I've certainly had clients who absolutely could pay me, have paid me. But they, if I can't care about other people's problems more than they do.
Sure.
And I do think that's where oftentimes lawyers, we get into trouble is that people come to us with a problem and we want to go in and save the day and really help them because we know we can help them and use this great knowledge. But if they don't care enough about their problem to forego something else to come up with the money to pay you to help them solve the problem, then why should you care about it more than they care about it? And I think we often don't think of it that way. We just think, oh, they don't have the money. Well, you don't really know that. You just know that they're telling you that, right?
Yeah.
And if their problem is important to them, and fortunately there are services available to people who truly don't have money. But the majority of people that will knock on your door to hire you have resources. They just may not be readily available to put their hands on them, right? And so you might have to help them think through how to work that out. But I do think that, you know, all of those experiences, we often, you know, people look at people who've been doing something for a long time and they're successful, and they go, well, how come she's successful and I'm not? What they're not seeing is the previous 2 decades, 3 decades, decade that somebody has had the embarrassing conversations and made the mistakes and had to go to court and say, Your Honor, can I speak to you? Can I approach and confess to something stupid you've done? And like, you will see that when you're out there scrolling social media, looking at somebody who's there, a boss babe in her suit looking like she's got it all together. You're not seeing that, you know, she's wearing her fuzzy slippers and, you know, she just got a shower an hour ago. Like, we don't see the behind the scenes of things like that, right? You guys see me when my hair is blown out, you know. Actually, you see me a lot of times when my hair is not blown out, but you know, you don't see me when I'm first waking up in the morning. And I think that's really what we have to keep in mind, is that, you know, comparisonitis, I think, is a huge problem that a lot of people have now. And so we force ourselves into situations that we don't really want to be in because we think we must be in them, we should be in them, we should, because these other people are doing it and I'm a failure somehow for not doing it or being that person or whatever.
Yeah, gotta watch the old should word. When the should word pops up, you need to ask, where is that coming from? Says who? Like, there's a lot of questions you can ask about the should word, right? I think
the shoulding all over yourself.
Are you shoulding all over yourself? Exactly. I love that. So let me ask you, okay, you talked about how, like, you feel like you're maybe like kind of on the 3rd or 4th phase of your career. So I'm so curious about, like, what's next for you. Do we have another book coming out? Like, or do you see me like?
I have 2 books. This one is brand new and I haven't yet put it out to the public because we're trying to get a funnel set up and we're having a tech issue. And it's been I pulled it down off of the bookseller sites, because as part of kind of a strategy for how I want to release this book and sell this book, but we're having a technical issue. So that book is still new. So you guys can, you know, look for that's coming out. I have a brand new program that just came out as well that is a companion to that book.
What is the title of the book, just for people who are listening? Because I can't see it.
Yeah, you can't see it.
I can't see the title. Yeah.
Me between my hair. You can see the different stages of my hair.
Okay.
This book, and it's called The Wealthy Woman Lawyer's Guide to Building a Systems-Driven Law Firm Business.
Systems.
And there's subtitles, 7 essential systems you need to take back your time, avoid burnout, and create lasting wealth. And so there's a companion course to it. But I'm am working on a 3rd book right now. We're in the process of writing it. And that is a book about it's a departure. It's going to be a real surprise departure for people when they see it.
Really?
Because I think the next logical book that people would expect me to put out, I've done one on marketing and one on systems, and I think most people would expect me to come out on one on hiring or building team or something next. But this one is going to be a departure, so you guys will just have to keep your eyes peeled for it. I'll leave it as a surprise.
You're not going to tell us
if it comes out. But it is around this is Wealthy Woman Lawyer is the brand. Mm-hmm. And so wealth is a key component of my brand. And it's about really, I do firmly believe that a lot of women sell themselves short when it comes to how much they can create in the world, how much money, how much prosperity, how much impact they can create in the world. They play too small and don't really step into their full potential. And I think a lot of times it's because they don't really realize how important it is to do that. It's important for a number of reasons, one of which is as we get older, we may not be able, the things that we thought we could count on to take care of us may not be there. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean relationships, spouses, government assistant, whatever it is, right? The things that we thought may not be there. And so we need to take care of our financial business. The other thing is that you can positively influence many more people in the world if you have the resources to do it. So the people who are most influential in our culture right now, does Elon Musk ring a bell? The guy who just bought Twitter, right, Elon Musk.
Who?
Yeah, the guy who just bought the
I don't
most
know that guy.
powerful communications platform in the world. Don't tell me he's not going to influence our world, right? So what can you do to wield more economic power? Because economic power is where you're going to be able to bring your values and your beliefs and your thoughts into the world and really leave a legacy, right? So it goes beyond buying a luxury purse or, buying a bigger house or whatever, even though those things are great too. And guess what? If you want them, you should be able to have them.
That's right.
I don't think anybody should make you feel guilty about it. But there's a bigger picture to what you can do if you have more resources. And it has always been the way throughout time that people, tribes, communities with more resources thrived more than ones with fewer resources, right? We know this.
Yeah.
And yet, I think women lawyers are some of the most highly educated, intelligent, and driven women out there. But if we cap ourselves at making $250,000 a year, $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, whatever it is, right? And we don't allow ourselves to reach our full potential. And the way we do that is by realizing that it cannot be by our willpower alone, that we need to start stepping into leadership roles and growing teams to be able to get where it is that we want to go. So we are connecting with people and influencing people and getting that. And I think I see so many women, law firm owners who self-limit. Like, if I just have enough for this or that, there's a lot of just enoughness. Yeah. And we get comfortable. And we don't want to step out of our comfort zone because we get just enough to be comfortable. And then we go, well, I'm okay. If I don't need, I don't really need.
Or you live in a low cost of living area and you're like, oh, like a couple hundred's good. Like, I don't, whatever.
Yeah, that's changing so rapidly. Try to buy a house right now. It's changing so rapidly. So I just think I think now more than ever, we need more women who are intelligent, educated women who are stepping up as leaders, especially a more diverse population of women stepping up as leaders in the world. And we really are limited unless we have economic power. So that's kind of my mission. So this new book will be kind of, going along with that concept.
I love that. And I was like, ooh, she's dropping little hints right now about what's in that book. So if you want to know when this other book is coming out, you're going to need to go follow Davina. So where can people find you? Like, where's the best place?
So the best place is my website, which is wealthywomanlawyer.com. It's super easy to remember, wealthywomanlawyer.com. I am making some changes to my website now. We have some sort of changes going on in the programming with some new opportunities coming up, which is going to be great for people. Also, Instagram. If you like Instagram, then you can follow me there at Wealthy Woman Lawyer, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. We also have a free Facebook group. So all of these are places and if you want to get on my mailing list, there's multiple ways that you can do that. And then you get those exclusive emails for, when I drop things and all that. You're the first to know. So those are the way. And then, of course, always the Wealthy Woman Lawyer podcast. If you're not listening to that, I get a lot of feedback on them. I've been doing this going in my fourth year, I think. And I get a lot of feedback on it. Sometimes I think, should I keep doing this? It's so much work.
The podcast.
And then I'll have like 2 or 3 people go, oh my God, your podcast is awesome. I love it. I'm like, well, then it's helping people. And that's really what I wanted to do, is to help people. So I do think you will, if you love to hear the stories of other women law firm owners and their journeys, and you love to hear from experts who help lawyers, then it's a great thing to listen to and enjoy.
Yeah. So go, after you listen to this podcast,
right,
go to Wealthy Woman Lawyer podcast, download it, listen to it. Great episodes. This has been so much fun, Davina. I loved talking with you because I got to learn a little bit more about you as an individual and sort of what's impacted your journey, which I think is really cool. And, I feel like you might be in like the third phase of 10, right? Like I kind of feel like you have like just the sky's the limit with what your future will be.
Yeah, I definitely have a vision for it. I have a vision that is much bigger than where it is now, in a different sort of way, so that it
Yeah.
is not it's not all me, but and I have a vision, for certainly for my own future, for other things as well. I do think I am, like I said, a lifelong learner, so I'm just always curious and wanting to know and open to new ideas. And I do think that is what has helped me be successful along the way, is because just that willingness to sort of be coachable, even with people who aren't coaches. Like, I mean, I do think it's important that you're selective about where you're getting your information, right? A lot of times we're listening to the blind are leading the blind. Other people are saying things with assertion, and you don't really know if they really know, right? But I do think it's important to I wish all the resources that are available now had been available when I started my business in 2007.
Yeah.
It would have been a different experience for me, I think, than it turned out to be, because I was doing a very traditional model. And I'm super excited about all the things that the young women lawyers are doing now,
Yeah.
and that my clients are doing. And I'm just thrilled to be a part of their journey and have a front row seat to that. And it's exciting to see. And so I look at the impact of that, my impact, their impact, and it's a ripple effect, it's a pebble in a pond. And I know that your new podcast is going to have the same effect.
I hope so.
There's going to be a huge ripple in a pond. All the people are going to hear these stories that you're sharing on the podcast. So I'm so glad. And I thank you for inviting me as one of your first few out here. So
absolutely loved having you on here. And I think one thing that's really kind of interesting that I'm realizing with all of this is how, like, when I went on my own out of a law firm in about 2010, and I got a lot of the same, like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Like, why would you give up the salary? Don't you want this corner office? Like, not really, no. That kind of stuff, like a virtual law, like how are you gonna do this without like leather bound books and do you know how much it costs to have like a Westlaw, all of this stuff. Like I heard it all, right? And I was like,
right,
anything is better than like being in a big law firm. I'm out of here. So I was at that point, I wanted to take the risk, right? And I was very fortunate that I could take the risk. I wasn't supporting a family, right? So it was a little bit easier probably in that way for me than maybe some other people. But, now, we talk about young women who are doing things differently. Like I see women, like young women on Instagram, that are running their practices very differently. And I'm like, hell yes. Like, I love seeing people that poke the bear a little bit, right? Like maybe are a little controversial in what they're saying or what they're doing it, or they have the gumption or the balls to do it differently. And that's like really what I want to feature here, are women who are just doing things differently. And I hope that does resonate, right, amongst women or even men too, who want to kind of think outside the box about how they take their legal career and mold it into making, I don't even want to say like a career necessarily, like almost like a lifestyle, right?
It is really about your life. It is about who you want to be in the world and how you want to show up in the world. It's really what it is. And I know you and I know we're probably running out of time, but I want to mention this because you and I had talked about this, and I think it's important. And that is that I became a coach. I'm still a licensed attorney, but I stopped practicing after I still have my practice. But I think I was active for about 6 years in the practice, part-time in the virtual practice. And so a lot of people just think I had the first practice and that was it. But this virtual practice really was, I had I was running that behind the scenes. But the reason I chose to focus just on this was because I had divided attention and I didn't feel that I could give that, 100% either one. So I really wanted to pick and move 100%. And also, it took me a while to let go of the identity. Like I still identify as a lawyer and I tell people I'm a lawyer because I am. And I still, I've got the friends and family that are still throwing stuff and going, hey, you
Look at my signature, right?
Right.
I have to say Esquire. People are like, what is that? Like, can I please get
So
away from saying this?
I still am, but that identity,
Mm-hmm.
I worked so hard. I
Yeah.
invested so much money. I invested so much time. I sacrificed family time. There were a lot of things that I did to that. And that identity. And so I would say to those of you who are thinking that I really don't like being a lawyer. I've tried this version and that version doesn't, I want to do something else. I think one of the biggest struggles is letting go of that thing that is so prestigious, because saying that you're an attorney opens doors for you. And and somebody said to me, you are still a lawyer. Nobody can take that away from you, right? You're still, unless you screw up, but right? Unless you
take your bar license,
right? But no, you still have that education, you still have that knowledge, you're still a licensed attorney, whatever. And so it doesn't matter if you're an attorney who's spending full-time investing in real estate, or if you're an attorney who's coaching, or you're an attorney who's now teaching, or you're an attorney who's opened up an online store selling candles, right? It doesn't matter, right? What matters is that you don't spend the rest of your life doing something that makes you miserable. I mean, truly, or that damage it. For me, it was a health thing. It was really impacting my health in a very negative way, because I wasn't I didn't know how to balance it. I'm an all or not, like I am a super achiever. Like, we're going all in, we're doing it. I'm doing it. And there's nobody's going to tell me I'm not going to be able to do this, because I'll stay up all night and make sure it gets done, right? Yeah. That kind of, you burn out doing that, right? So I do think that identity, it is a piece of who you are, and nobody can take it away from you. Nobody can take that intelligence away from you, what you know now, and the skills that you have. And so for me, starting the coaching business was really about marrying my skills from my first career and my second career, and using those skills. So I use my skills as a business attorney.
Yeah.
When I'm coaching clients, as much as I use that marketing and business skills and the skills from being a multiple entrepreneur. I've had multiple businesses with my husband and by myself, and some have failed and some have grown. And so I use all of that, and that's me as a whole person. I'm also in my mid-50s. I'm about to be 57 soon. So if you're sitting here and you're 25 or you're 30, and you're thinking, oh my God, my life is over, I don't know what to do, I hate this, blah, 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 I got news for you. You got time, you can change things.
You're just getting started, kiddo.
Right? Don't and don't compare yourself to people who there are attorneys out there in their 40s who've built their multi-million dollar law firms, and now they're starting other firms and their other businesses. And if you're comparing yourself to them, don't, because they've got the time is a huge factor in that as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Time, opportunities, other resources. You don't know what other resources people have when they were starting out to get where they are. So don't measure yourself against other people. I would say that's something that I see so many people in our moments when we're sitting in the dark with Netflix and our glass of wine, and scrolling the phone,
looking at Instagram highlight reels.
My opinion, right? Yeah, and you're scrolling Instagram, you're going, "Oh my God, I'm such a loser," right? First of all, you're not alone. I know so many people.
Everyone's doing that.
Older people. Like I said, I'm in my mid-50s. I got a whole toolbox full of skills, and still there are days that I'm going, "Dang it, I'm not doing that. I should be doing that. Why am I not doing that?" Right? Because they're right, exactly. You
are shitting all over yourself.
And you are still an attorney. If you're a lawyer, you've owned your own law firm, you can change it. You can go take a job. You can come back, open another law firm another year from now. I mean, like you can do whatever it is that you want to do that makes you happy. And that I think it's really kind of the message of your podcast as well, Legally Blissed. It's really it's really about sort of following your bliss and doing what makes you happy, and not feel you have to be married to something just because one time you decided to go to law school.
Yeah, right. And watching
Right?
those voices, right? Those internal voices that do say things like,
Yeah.
oh, I just spent like X amount of money on law school and I invested, I worked for this law firm for 2,300, 2,500 hours this year, like all of these things that we say that, that keep us from really doing what we want to do. And sometimes it's just not practicing law, and that's okay. And there, just like you were saying, there's so many skills that you pick up, even on those days that maybe you're not super happy practicing law, or maybe on those days that, maybe you decide to go be an entrepreneur and open an ice cream store, right? There are skills that you learn as a lawyer that are going to help you with your ice cream shop. So
absolutely. And you could also practice part-time if you want, you know what I mean? Like there's always that option. And fortunately, because of the tools we have out there, we have a lot more resources available to us to practice in different ways. We don't need a firm to do that. So it is really about really getting clear on what you want. And if you're struggling with those negative voices, know that a lot of people do. Yeah. And I know because I have conversations every day with women who do, and men have those too. It's just different, right? But that's why it's so important to surround yourself with like-minded people. And by that, I don't mean like-minded in a sort of culty way. I mean it more like people who know that we all, like 85% of the voices in our head are negative, and to help you pull yourself out of that when you can't do it yourself, So fill your mind with the positive, and don't worry about people. I heard on Real Housewives of whatever, I don't remember now, one of the ladies, her tagline was something like, if you're not happy for me, get off my rainbow, or something like that. And I was like, I love that.
I love that.
Get off my rainbow. If you're not in my happy place with me, just get off my rainbow.
Just bounce off my rainbow.
Exactly.
Love that. On that note, this has been fun. I really appreciate you hanging out with me. I've learned so much. I know there's so many really good nuggets here for the listeners, so that's exciting too. And of course, I want everyone to go check out Wealthy Woman Lawyer, your website and your podcast, so everyone knows when your book, soon to be announced, comes out. So I like that you're keeping it a secret. I think it's kind of fun. So
yeah. Oh, that was in the works. It's in the works, and there's some new stuff out now. This book is going to be released. It's come hell or high water. We're going to figure out the tech issue, and there is a brand new course that goes with that book that is out now. So people can go and check out the webinar where I talk about the 7 essential systems that every law firm needs to get to 7 figures. And you can find that on my Instagram. It's a great place to look for that right now. And then we'll be reopening the league with some new goodies for a special promotion and enrollment period in June. So lots of good stuff coming down the pipeline for anybody who's interested in just follow along. And if there's something that appeals to you, then join us. And if it's not your thing, that's okay too.
Yeah. And I'm big on like surrounding yourself with, you said, kind of like-minded. I like to say like gold, people who you sort of want to emulate and look up to, and community like the league are great places to do that. So
yeah.
Thanks
you so much for having me. I enjoyed it so much.
This was fun. Have a great day.